Welcome to episode 90 of the Unstoppable Podcast. This is part 2 of the Becoming Superhuman series with Christian Thomson.
My name is Dan J. Gregory, and I am committed to hunting down the secrets of business mastery and human performance. My goal for the Unstoppable Podcast is to share insights from some of the most successful entrepreneurs, inspiring thought leaders, world-class athletes, and prominent celebrities to help you to become unstoppable in business and life. Each week I'll be bringing you a new interview with an inspiring person and sharing my own results as I pursue the answers to the question, how can I create the ultimate edge in my business, make a significant impact, and live an extraordinary life?
Hello and welcome to episode 90 of the Unstoppable Podcast, marching towards the big 100th episode. Now, this special episode is part 2 of 2 with a special series with Christian Thomson on becoming superhuman. It's not normal that we release a podcast on the Sunday, but the first part came out on Thursday last week, and now we are here for part 2. And Christian is the second guest to have come back for a second interview since the John Holowati episode that went viral earlier in 2016, which resulted in him coming back for a second episode. So Christian is back as part of this double header because January is often a time where we reset our body goals and make a new commitment to our own health and fitness. I personally want to take my own health, vitality, and well-being to the next level in 2017. So I invited my good friend Christian Thomson to the show to talk about what it takes to become superhuman. So in part 1, you discovered Christian's story of how he went from being told that he could never compete in a martial arts tournament to becoming a world kickboxing champion. So in addition to this story and all the lessons that can be learned from becoming a world champion, Christian gave a primer to his current work as a performance coach where he strives to bring together the world's best knowledge on the human body and brain to empower others to create positive change for themselves. So if you haven't listened to part 1 yet, then I would strongly recommend starting with session 1. It's going to give you really good context to everything that we're going to talk about in this session. So part 1 was in episode 89. Do go and check it out if you haven't done so already. But if you have, welcome to part 2. We're back for more. And in this episode, we're going to discuss a range of topics, including a science-based approach to help you understand exactly what impacts upon your body's vitality. You can understand how to feel great and really get to know the most essential aspects of how your body functions in the face of changing environments and circumstances. You're going to understand how to achieve a superior body conditioning and be able to read the signs that affect your overall physical health. We're going to go through some simple practical steps to creating a phenomenal body transformation, and you're going to learn how to cleanse the body and understand the markers of overall physical health, plus loads more. This is an in-depth conversation, and I could genuinely talk to Christian for days. There's still so many questions I'd love to ask him. He is a walking fountain of knowledge when it comes to everything that could possibly relate to becoming superhuman, from everything from mindset, health, physiology, neurology, biology. The guy is a fountain of knowledge. And fortunately, with his equilibrium transformation superhuman system, Christian brings together the very best of all of his practical wisdom and insights into one hub, which is built around a community of like-minded individuals who all seek to become the best version of themselves. This equilibrium transformation superhuman system is absolutely mind-blowing. I'm a member at the diamond level, and the material within the system itself is unbelievable, and the support that Christian provides to the community is just second to none. So you're going to want to find out more about his superhuman system, and you're going to learn a bit about it throughout today's session. However, I do have some great news for you. So if your interest is piqued through today's interview and the previous interview, what I've arranged for you is something very, very special as a listener of the Unstoppable Podcast. Christian has kindly agreed to some amazing discounts, which are exclusive to Unstoppable Podcast listeners. That means you. So the first 20 people who sign up to the Superhuman system with the discount code UNSTOPPABLE will get 50% off your membership. I strongly recommend you take action fast, take action with that Unstoppable code, and come and join me and Christian inside the Superhuman system. Now, once the 50% codes have all gone, the cheekily named nearly unstoppable code will give you 20% off. That's nearly unstoppable. That's going to give you 20% off. So act fast. Be one of the first to go and take advantage of that 50% off code. I don't get anything for this. This is a gift from Christian. So I encourage you to head over to eqtransformations.co.uk to be one of the first to take up Christian's kind New Year offer, which is exclusive to you as a listener of the Unstoppable podcast. You can find all the details at eqtransformations.co.uk, and all of the codes and the links will be in today's show notes at danjgregory.com/90. That's danjgregory.com/90. You'll find all the codes there, the links, etc. Everything you need will be on the show notes. All right, without further ado, let's get straight into it. Welcome to part 2 of Becoming Superhuman with Christian Thomson on the Unstoppable podcast. I'm excited. Welcome back, Christian. Let's do this. Welcome back to part 2 with Christian Thomson today on Becoming Superhuman. I'm very excited for the second part of this session. This is the second 2-part series that I've done on the Unstoppable podcast. And when we find a subject where we can go really, really deep, we bring back the guest for the second time to go even further into the subject matter. So I'm delighted to go into this subject even further with you, Christian, given that this is the January Transformation Special, and we're looking into how to become superhuman. We've got some exciting stuff lined up today. And just for reference, listeners, there was a period of time between the 2 interviews, so we may have some overlap between what we talked about in session 1 and session 2. In session 1, we talked about Christian's background and his work, and a really introduction to some of the topics that he focuses upon. And since then, he's gone on to do even more research in depth in certain areas that we're going to talk about today. So I'm really excited, Christian, and welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me back on. It's a pleasure and a privilege. Yes, I'm very excited to share what we're going to talk about today, not only just with yourself now and today, but also in the future and over the next year. Got a lot of stuff planned, and it's going to be a very exciting year ahead, that's for sure.
Awesome. So given it's January, Christmas season is long gone. It's funny saying that, we're actually recording this during Christmas season, but for the purpose of this interview, we are now looking forward to 2017. So I'd like to kick off talking about cleansing the body. I know that's an area of deep research you've spent a lot of time involved within. Firstly, could you just give us a primer in terms of why it's important to cleanse the body, and then let's go into some of the detail that you've discovered through your own research.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things where it's important to cleanse the body if you're in a bad state. But if you're constantly in a good state and you kept yourself healthy through your entire life, it's almost irrelevant. Your body should do it naturally. Mm-hmm. But so I'll tell you a story again about myself, and the reason why I've done so much research into this, and probably have a good idea of why and how it works personally, is because I had mercury poisoning that was causing chronic adrenal fatigue from about the age of 12.
Wow.
Through mercury amalgams in my teeth. Basically, a few of them just broke apart in my teeth. The dentist did a bad job, for whatever reason that happened, and one of them fell out. One of them basically made my teeth crumble around it. It was really, really bad. But no one knew anything back then. No one was sort of saying this stuff. It just wasn't around, and no one knew. And then when I went into neurology and was able to test this against my neurological system, we started to find out a lot more. Now, your adrenal glands never really fatigue. They just, your body produces cortisol over sex hormones and other things, which causes a real struggle in energy levels. And every time I sat down, I wanted to fall asleep. And it was horrible. It was terrible. And until I did this, developed this protocol, I was suffering severely with energy levels my entire life. And even when I was told about the first thing I'm going to talk about in the protocol, which is EDTA, and it was a very effective way to chelate, or basically bind heavy metals and take them out of the body. The first time I tried it, I felt good for like 2 or 3 days, and then I felt like even worse. I was like, oh my God. I mean, so when you do this wrong, I mean, it can go wrong. It can go bad ways. So, I mean, everyone doing this should make sure they know what they're doing. They've sought the right advice. They're asking the right questions. So, don't just go into this lightheartedly or with just flippantly thinking, oh, I'll just give it a try and see how I feel.
Yeah.
You've got to make sure you do your reading, put the due diligence in.
Okay.
So, I mean, for me,
how did you discover that it was mercury? How did you make that connection in terms of the?
Well, there's a few things you can do. I mean, there's lots of lab tests and other bits and pieces, but we actually used a neurological process through various methods of manual muscle testing and natural neurological responses to test different reactions to different materials and different minerals and different other bits and pieces. Now, that doesn't mean I was sticking mercury in my mouth or in my body or asking my body or my soul what this meant or something. No, that's not exactly it. It's a more complex system than that. It's very difficult to explain, but over a podcast. Yeah, sure. But basically we were using neurological tools to test my body's physical reactions second by second, minute by minute, to various chemicals that I'd put on in my mouth or in my body, and also so things like EDTA, was that having a positive effect on my neurology or is it having a negative effect? Now, what a lot of people don't realize, don't understand, is that your tongue is an incredibly powerful tool in diagnosis. And I don't mean by looking at it in like the old Chinese medicine way, where people go, oh, your tongue is red and it's got white dots, or this part's inflamed, or this part's red. I mean, these things have some sense, and they have some grounding in evidence, and well, not only observational, but actual physical reasons why they could work. Now, your tongue is innervated by 4 different cranial nerves. So that in itself has a huge effect. Not to mention that there's also been a linking of a nervous connection between various areas of your tongue and various organs in your body. So no one's ever told you why it's a bad idea to swim after you've eaten. And that's because you have 5 taste sensation areas on your tongue. And when you get that exact taste sensation on that exact area of your tongue, that will basically overexcite the receptors in that area of the tongue, and those organs will become inhibited that are connected to that area of the tongue.
Oh, wow.
Through a nervous connection. And those organs have a nervous connection to various muscles. So those muscles will also then become inhibited. So you think after you've eaten a meal, depending on the consistency of the meal and the size, you could have all sorts of different reactions. Now, your tongue is also connects to the vagus nerve, which connects to your hypothalamus, or from your hypothalamus all the way down to, I think it's the first third of your colon, of your large intestines. So when something touches your tongue, that sends information to your brain and your gut. So up and down that brain-gut axis to let you know what's coming in. So what energy is about to come into the system, and also what your body needs to do to digest and process that energy and food. It's basically counting the electrons and protons coming into your body and making an assessment of what needs to happen, where things need to go. It makes all these decisions at such a fast quantum speed. You remember, your brain is a quantum computer at the end of the day. It makes all these decisions just unthinkably fast. So you eat something, it touches your tongue, and the second it does that, your body knows exactly what's coming in and what it needs to do to carry on through about its business. So already we've got this very accessible neurological tool here for not diagnosis exactly, but for testing to then eventually come to a diagnosis. So when I was creating these protocols, I was doing this with the help of people like Dr. Jose Palomar, who created a system called PDTR, which we spoke about a little bit before, and using these neurological tools to help me do this, as well as using my research myself and reading up around people like Dr. Jack Kruse, Dr. Gerald Pollack, taking their information, and also just reading what else is out there, what other people are doing. And then once I had all that information, I just basically tested myself and used myself as a guinea pig, because I had a very, very severe case of chronic fatigue, and that seemed to be being caused by heavy metals. I mean, mercury was testing positive in the lab tests. that I did from hair, skin, blood, saliva. So there's a number of different things we did to test that. But that's only stuff that's floating around in the bloodstream. You can't really test what's being hidden away in fat stores. And remember, myelinated tissue is fat. So that means heart tissue, brain tissue, nervous tissue, all of that stuff has the ability to store toxic chemicals and harmful substances. So it's not floating around your bloodstream doing damage. But then what happens is that area stops working very well because it's storing toxins. And also, if you're holding lots of fat that doesn't seem to want to shift in that one area, but then everything else is shifting, often that can point to a toxic storage dump in your body. Not always, but often. So, I mean, there's some of the things you should be looking at and why it's important.
So how does someone discover for themselves what they need to detox? Is there where would they go? You've obviously gone through a very clear set of protocols to get a clear understanding of exactly what you're looking to detox. How can the everyday people do that?
But if you get an opportunity to see a PDTR practitioner, I would say take it. Mm-hmm. That's the first off. It's very, very effective, very fast way of doing it. There are many, many different lab tests you can use to try and understand whether your body is toxified in any which route. But there are more generic systems you can use to just go, okay, right, I'm going to detox myself slowly from things. And by detox, I mean upregulate organ function realistically, or aid organ function, because your organs will naturally detox yourself. So detox is a word that really, it's a dirty word, like adrenal fatigue. It's not actually true, but it's not actually true. It's just a word that we use because that's what everyone understands.
Right.
So it's sometimes difficult because you'll say something and then you'll get slammed for it by a scientific community because it's not true and it's factually incorrect. But if you said it in the correct way, no one would listen to you. No one would know what you're talking about. No one would care. So you've got to make a choice sometimes of how you say stuff. Okay. But apart, you've got the lab tests, you've got the neurological testing to find out a bit more. But if you find yourself in a position where you are in a state of heavy metal toxicity, then using something like EDTA can be a very, very powerful tool. And there's also another one called DMSA.
What are these acronyms? What do these letters mean? What do they stand for?
They're just basically acronyms for large, long-standing chemical compounds. But
right.
if you type in EDTA inhalation therapy or DSMA inhalation therapy, they'll both come up. You'll both see them. Again, it's like I could give you a full chemical name, but it won't mean anything to yourself or any of the listeners. It's pointless. EDTA inhalation therapy is what they need to really be looking up if they have a feeling that or if they want to know more about the heavy metal toxicity. I mean, I talk about this in my membership system.
Yeah.
And I have a protocol particularly that I put together that I'll share a little bit about today. So to give people an idea of how to go about it, that I share particularly with my main top level members that are in regular conversations with me. Yeah. The reason why I don't give protocols to anyone that's not in regular conversations to me is because if they take the information that I have and use it incorrectly, like I said, if it's not right, it's got to be specific. If it's not right, there are things that go wrong, and I don't want anyone to use information that I'm giving in the wrong way.
Yeah, makes sense.
It's the last thing anyone ever wants. But I mean, so the main thing that we've got to look at. So if I was saying, okay, so you just want to upregulate your organs, going through a 4-day fasting process where you're just starting by allowing your body to clear its systems naturally. Maybe having I use a particular shake put together from herbs and water for those 4 days that was put together by a very famous nutritionist in LA called Rihan Jalani. Mm-hmm. also a doctor. I'm not sure. I need to double check. Yeah, he's a very, very famous nutritionist that stars. Like one of his most famous clients at the moment is Ben Affleck.
Yes.
For the Batman movies, and he put together this 4-day detox protocol to regulate organ function, and is this really, really powerful tool. So one of the first things I do is get people going through a fasting process to allow their body and their organs to reset themselves and resensitize the receptors and the systems within that process. And then I would get people going onto a 10-day gut healing process where they're using things like bone broths and various nutrients to sort of heal the gut lining. And we'll come on to leaky gut in a minute, because I'm going to tell you why leaky gut, well, you're never going to get rid of leaky gut in the first place, and why actually leaky gut is not always the enemy and not the worst thing in the world. It's just if our guts get too leaky, and also how our immune system reacts to things. Okay. We'll go into that in a little bit later. Okay. But then I would do something to help heal the gut lining, because the gut lining can become too permeable and cause too much problems. So we'll go through 10 days of that, and then we'll go through 10 days of what we call chelation therapy. Now, with this, I use a natural process using things like clay, charcoal, and chlorella for most people. And it will just basically remove any non-organic minerals that are causing any issues if people are going through or aren't going through like a very hard, rigorous program. During this, I would normally put people on a vegan diet, but with a caveat, they have to eat a ton of seaweed and supplement with a lot of blue-green algae, right, to increase their DHA. DHA is an omega-3 fatty acid that you can only really get from fish source normally. The only two vegetable sources are blue-green algae and seaweed. Okay. And they're not going to be, generally it's not in enough quantity to satisfy me, to be honest, for a diet. But for those 10 days, the higher level of green food can act as a very good aid to help the body remove anything that's maybe causing it some damage. Eating fish is acceptable, but then there's the problem where some fish sources in itself have high toxicity of heavy metals. Yeah. And if you're going through a process trying to get rid of more toxicity, it's probably not the best. And then a lot of the meats have hormones and other stuff in them. You know, you can't eat anything today without getting something, going wrong. It just seems to be the way. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't eat anything. It just means everything's got to be done in a process and a reason. So when we're talking about cleansing the diet, it's first 4-day fasting protocol, then 10 days of gut healing, which is including something like a bone broth.
So when you say fasting, you're talking complete withdrawal of food for 4 days?
So my fasting protocol is 3 shakes and a green salad a day. That's it. So it's like literally you have a shake first thing, 4 hours later you have another shake, 4 hours later you have another shake, 4 hours later you have a green salad, and nothing. And no, basically it's just like plain steamed asparagus, spinach, kale, broccoli, peas, depending what's seasonal at the time. Yeah, just greens.
Do people live like a normal lifestyle during this time, or should they be resting?
Yeah. They should. Living a normal lifestyle is fine, but it's no exercise. Okay. No exercise, no coffee. The only supplements you should be taking during this is something like dandelion to aid liver. Okay. But basically you just go just that 4 days done. Once you sort of go through that process, then go through the 10 days of healing the gut lining through and the bone broth is the most important thing. So making sure you're having bone broth daily.
I've heard about bone broth before. Talk to me about the benefits of using bone broth.
Basically, it's like a glutinous substance within the bone broth that is matching your gut lining. It's helping heal that lining. It's just using similar substances basically so they can draw from each other to use raw materials.
And how does someone either make that or get hold of something like that?
There's tons of websites online that will sell you bone broth, or there's recipes. I've got a recipe on my free blog for bone broth. So, I mean, if you go onto my website, you sign up to the free blog, you type in bone broth, there's a recipe there straight away for you.
Great.
There's one for fish broth, one for bone broth, one's for vegetable broth. All of them work. All of them best. Bone broth, I feel is bone broth and fish broth are better. Vegetable broth will still work, but it's not as effective. So for those people that are vegetarian or vegan, so go through 10 days of that, and the way I would eat during that is, like I said, more on a vegan, but with lots of seaweed.
Yeah.
Vegan diet with lots of seaweed. I'd have biggest breakfast possibly can, always, as soon as you wake up, biggest breakfast you can, and then nice big lunch, and then very, very early on in the day, say like 6-7 p.m., have your bone broth for dinner, and then that's it, done. No more eating, no snacking, no more eating. Even during the day, I don't like snacking anymore. I don't like this idea of eating constantly and grazing throughout the day. It's not actually as beneficial for us as people think. First off, there's all the studies that were originally, or all the evidence shows that snacking during the day to eating 3 regular meals, there's no real difference in fat loss or energy levels or anything else to be gained. But what does happen if you snack throughout the day is your liver loses the ability to use things like glycolysis and signal the body to use its energy stores appropriately. What people don't realize is we only actually probably use 40% of the food we eat in our bloodstream at the time we eat it. The rest of the 60% gets stored in our liver to be used for energy throughout the day until we eat again. So if we constantly are grazing on food, we're taking away our liver's ability to be that backup energy store. And that's why livers get clogged up. That's why we have excess fat storage. I mean, it's not the only reason, but it's a big thing. So I would say big breakfast, good lunch, small dinner, if any dinner at all, no snacking, that's it. Tons of water.
And that kind of protocol, would that be a useful protocol for people to follow outside of this kind of cleansing process?
Yes. For me, like now, I only eat 2 meals a day regularly. I mean, sometimes I'll have dinner, sometimes and I'll live my life. If we go out, like last night, we're out for a few drinks, and it's Christmas and it's fine. So we went out for drinks, we had a bit of food with some friends. There's no problem. But something that's very important is autophagy and mitophagy. And a lot of people will do things like intermittent fasting to achieve this. But the way they'll do it is wrong, because I say wrong, I say it's not as most effective, because they will skip breakfast and eat dinner, which is the wrong way around. If you want your leptin levels to be at the best point, which is your master hormone, which controls your energy balance in 3 trillion in trillions of cells all at once, by basically being the eternal electron counter in your body, leptin sensitivity is the most important thing. And if you want that to be high, you need to be eating breakfast. So when people try to create autophagy and mitophagy in their body, which is basically the recycling of cells, and that you need a 4-hour fast before you sleep. The most important time for sleep is between 12 and 3, which is when all these biochemical reactions are happening, when you've got so things like prolactin being released and growth hormone being released and melatonin rising in the evening. All these sort of things are very important to happen before growth hormone will be released, and then before autophagy and mitophagy happen, or cell recycling. And if you miss one of those hormone cascades out, then you're going to completely reduce the ability of your body to have this effect, to have that recycling going on. So when people talk about intermittent fasting, they talk about having a 12-hour fast and that forcing your body into autophagy and mitophagy. Well, the most effective time for your body to do it is at night, and it's not going to do it on anything less than a 4-hour fast. So eating first thing in the morning, that's at 5 in the morning or 6 in the morning, and then stopping eating at 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the evening, or late afternoon, early evening, is going to be a lot more effective at creating this natural event of cell recycling than skipping breakfast and eating late. So for me, as soon as I get up, I have the biggest breakfast I possibly can, and then when I'm hungry next, I'll have another huge meal. And then I will just drink a minimum 3 liters of water a day, absolute minimum. And I'll just keep that up. And normally that's absolutely fine. I mean, I'm never hungry for anything.
Wow.
I eat because I want to eat. I eat because it's social. I eat because it tastes nice, and I enjoy my food. And Christmas is around the corner for me and for us right now. And even when it does get to January, I'm doing stuff. I'm jumping in cold rivers, or I'm running through a forest or something, which is what will be happening at some point next year. Or even if I'm getting on a flight, all these things are fine, and my body can handle it, and it works well, and it's never causing me any trouble anymore these days because it's in a good shape. It's constantly having the opportunity to recycle its cells. It's constantly being fed well enough. It's constant. Exercise doesn't tire me out. I don't get DOMS anymore. I don't have pain or muscle soreness after I do any of these workouts. I can put on muscle or become extremely much fitter with very little effort these days, just because I've put myself in a good space. The health is there, and I credit that a lot to actually changing the food timing rather than the food itself. Food timing is actually a lot more important. Eating first thing in the morning, huge, big lunch, then not eating again to make sure I have a minimum of a 4-hour fast before I sleep. This is one of the most or guide for my eating habits.
Great. So if people aren't prepared to say skip the evening meal, they just need to think about eating earlier. Is that right?
Yeah, completely. I mean, have dinner by all means. I mean, make sure you're never hungry. I mean, going hungry is not the point. Just make sure you're eating, and it takes time to change your habits into those things as well. So if people are thinking, well, I could never do that, I can never eat breakfast. The way I always say to people is, okay, do you know what? You feel sick after you eat a banana in the morning because it's too much for you and you don't want to eat breakfast. All right. Well, first, let's try and change that to something more protein and fats orientated. So protein is one of the most important things to have in the morning. As I mentioned before, when food touches your tongue, that sets a cascade of reactions in your body. Now, the first thing that touches your tongue in the morning is the most important thing. So having something like a fatty fish or a piece of protein in the morning is going to set a hormone cascade that's going to direct how your body reacts to food for the rest of the day.
Wow.
So without going to the ins and outs of that, because we'll be here for 2 hours, just on that, it's very important. First meal of the day, as soon as what you do is just get up and just eat as much as you can, and then do whatever you need to do, and then next time you're hungry, eat again and eat again, and just try and set it to 2 to 3 big meals in a day, and just try your hardest to stick to that. And it's going to take time, and it's not going to be easy for everyone to do. But once you get into it, it will change your health in such a way that you'll never ever go back.
Okay. And is there any principles people should follow in terms of, say, for those 2 big meals, you say eat as much as possible? Is there any principles they should follow in terms of the types of foods, or food combinations? By food combinations, I mean protein to carbohydrate ratios and those kind of things. What kind of protocols do you follow when it comes to those big meals?
When it comes to those meals, I follow another very good person to look up to. One of the guys I read a ton of stuff on is Dr. Jack Kruse, and I follow his protocols when it comes down to deciding what you should eat and when you should eat it. And the evidence behind that is, or the thought behind that is, basically high seafood diet is the most optimum diet for your brain and your body. But the idea of ratios, for instance, is not so important. It's just eat what's in season. If it's seasonal and if it's local, it's good. Now, if it's seasonal and non-local, there's still I'm still looking into exactly how detrimental things can be or are, or what is okay. Like, avocado is generally good for people, like really good for people, right? But then, if they're not seasonal, if they're not local, how much damage could this be doing to your body, and to understand why and how, you have to kind of take a journey with me on a bit of a quantum world to understand how the sun literally programs electrons in our food to do a job within our body, and how the sun programs us and electrons in us to expect certain things at certain times of year and certain times of day. So again, when we'll come to this in a little bit later, I think we'll talk about some environmental stimulus and why it's so important. But the sun in your environment dictates how your body is going to react to everything you put in it, or everything you come in contact with. If you eat berries in the winter, like blueberries in the winter or strawberries in the winter, like here in London, or in England, strawberries are a summer fruit. If you're eating them in the winter, your body is going to react poorly to it because it's not expecting it. The light levels are different. The light in the fruit, or the electrons in the fruit that have a job to do, are going to do the wrong job. And when they get to that area trying to do that job, the body's not prepared for it. It's a mismatch, and it causes inflammation. This is a very layman's way of explaining it, but that's kind of what it is. Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, the biggest, most important rules for me is big breakfast, big lunch, small dinner.
Got it.
No snacking. That's the most important protocol for having the best diet. In terms of what type of food to eat, it's whatever's in season and local is always best. And in terms of ratios, I just say the most of your plate should be, I say anything between half to two-thirds of your plate should probably be meat and fats, or like protein and fats, because they're the most electron-dense food, and will keep you hungry for keep you satiated for the longest, and can just do a lot more work for you. The nutrients and the micronutrients in the vegetables and the fruits and all that, they're massively important. Okay. But again, you don't fuel a brain with vitamin C. In fact, you make vitamin C endogenously in your microbiome, as well as vitamin K2. And you make D3 from absorbing UV light from the sun. So you've got three major players in your health of your immune system that are made endogenously and from environmental stimulus. The reason people need to eat them is because they're not getting enough of them from their environment, or they're not making enough of them internally. The reason why they're not making enough of them internally is because their brains aren't functioning properly, because the brains aren't sending the right signals to the right places, so on and so forth. So it's a big circle of things. The best nutrients for the brain is DHA, EPA, which are fishy fatty acid, omega-3 fatty acids. And people often discuss saying, well, we can make those from ALA, but the science has been there, the evidence has been there, the studies have been done to show that we can make DHA and EPA from ALA, which is a plant-based omega-3. But the problem with that is men can only make it like 0.5 to 4% out of DHA or EPA out of ALA, and women like 4 to 8%. So it's a very small amount, and it's not going to be ever enough to fuel your brain.
Makes sense.
So if you're a vegetarian or vegan, you've got to love seaweed.
Yeah.
Basically, sea vegetables.
Yeah.
Because they will actually contain the DHA and EPA. So for the brain, we're looking DHA, EPA, iodine, copper, magnesium, zinc. There's some of the biggest ones. Iron, another big one. I've got a whole list of stuff on my blog again that will be going out for brain nutrients. But I mean, the most important thing is look after your brain, because the brain is going to control. The brain controls the rest of your body, realistically. Yeah. Now, the body is the vessel for the brain and your consciousness and your travel through the world, and you've got to look after that too. But they are one thing. They are a unison. But if you're not feeding the brain, the body will die. It's an obvious fact. If your brain starts to fall apart, it doesn't matter anything else. Yeah. So for me, everything I work on is about making sure the brain is looked after the most, and sleep is at its most optimum. They're the two most important facts for health, brain and sleep. And basically sleep comes back to making sure the brain is healthy.
Yes.
So it's all realistic, making sure the brain is the most healthy thing in the body, and everything else will be looked after naturally, because our brain and our body want to be healthy, want to be strong. When you give them the right connective pathways to communicate efficiently, everything works. There's no problem.
Okay, so within that cleanse process, you talked about the kind of leaky gut stuff and healing a leaky gut. Could you give us some context on that? I know that's a topic we wanted to go into in terms of how.
So this is really cool. This is really cool. Some of the stuff I've been researching recently was about human evolution and theories among that. Now, my favorite among this was the fact that we evolved along coastal lines. Although one of the most popular theories is the savanna theory. Now, again, coming back to that brain nutrient story is the reason why I believe that the savanna theory isn't really applicable, because we could never really make enough nutrients to make a human brain from that. But one of the really interesting things is about something called zonulin. Now, anyone that's done much study into leaky gut will generally know that zonulin is a very key marker for how leaky your gut is. And what people may not know is Jack Kruse talks about this a lot in his stuff. Is zonulin is something that is found very regularly in shellfish. So the idea is that we were living coastally, eating shellfish that have all of those brain nutrients that we need to create a human brain. We ate these foods that had this virus or this bacteria with zonulin, which caused us to have leaky guts, which then caused us to be able to assimilate retroviruses and through our gut lining, which we then stole the DNA of those retroviruses and used them within our own DNA profile to be able to evolve and change, not only on a physiological level, but on a neurological level. Now, this seems kind of a bit out there for a lot of people, but someone called Barbara McClintock in 1951, she discovered something called jumping genes.
What does that mean?
And so what jumping genes is basically the gene's ability to almost switch themselves up, to rearrange themselves, to create new structures. So if you imagine, have you heard of junk DNA before?
No, I haven't. No, what does that mean?
So basically, I think they were saying 80% of our DNA, of our code, of our DNA that's in our bodies, is junk. We don't use it. There's no use for it. Now they've changed this name more recently to non-coding DNA.
Okay.
Originally it was called junk DNA, and they say, oh yeah, even weirder facts that only 3% of our DNA is actually structural coding DNA. So only 3% of our entire 100% of their DNA is actually what determines what you look like.
Wow.
There's less than 1% difference between us and great apes in DNA structure. There's all these really weird, wonderful facts. But 80% of our DNA basically does nothing, apparently. So if you imagine that this story was true, that we ate shellfish, zonulin caused our guts to be leaky, and then we assimilated retroviruses and started taking parts of their DNA and putting it in our library. Now, what other people may have heard of before is we are the only beings on the planet that can alter our DNA through thought alone. So epigenetics is basically environmental stimulus to change genetics. DNA and genetics is realistically just a library. Epigenetics is the ability to change those. Now, jumping genes is what gives us the ability to reshuffle that library into what that 20% of active or upregulated genes are. So that 100% of DNA comes into 20% of use, that comes into 3% of structural use. So you can see there that this story starts to grow and starts to become actually a bit more thought-provoking. So
what does it all mean in terms of the potential for transforming our health, in terms of understanding this this DNA picture, what does this offer us?
Well, I mean, first off, we've got to understand that we evolved a leaky gut to evolve as a being. So to get rid of a leaky gut would be to de-evolve. It takes away our ability to assimilate new DNA.
I see. Okay.
To evolve past that. So if we even take the slightest hint that this is true, then automatically you've got to accept that leaky gut isn't the problem for a lot of people. It's a byproduct of our environment causing a problem. Okay, so leaky gut isn't the big boogeyman that a lot of people will make it out to be. Now, yes, having a leaky gut is a problem, and one of the reasons that's a problem is as soon as you have high cortisol, you have higher stress levels, permeability of all barriers increase. That's skin, lungs, blood-brain barrier, and the intestinal lining. And also what happens is your immune system drops. So gut lining permeability increases, immune system decreases, cortisol is because of cortisol is increased because you're in a high stress response.
Okay.
Things end up in the wrong places, and then when your permeability goes back down, they get stuck in the wrong places, your immune system comes back up and attacks them as if they're pathogens or viruses or something's wrong.
Mm.
Then your body learns that those things are bad and you become intolerant to things. Again, this is a short way of saying this, and there's much more in it than just that. But it's an easy way to understand that this is how these sort of problems come about. So leaky gut, again, is just a reaction in the body. And what we've got to do is learn to understand those reactions and control those reactions in a way to help us rather than hinder us. So again, healing the gut lining, because too many things are passing through too regularly because you're in such a high cortisol state constantly. You've got to take away the high cortisol state, take away the high stress state. That's the problem.
Mm.
The leaky gut is the problem. The leaky gut is the body's solution to try and help do something about it.
So it's not the cause, it's a symptom. It's a symptom.
Symptom, yeah. Symptom. So I mean, a lot of people do understand that leaky gut is a symptom of a greater thing. I mean, most people have got that thought, but getting rid of leaky gut isn't the point.
It's like treating. It's like treating.
Yeah.
Whenever you treat a symptom, it doesn't get rid of the underlying cause. It'll repeat
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah, exactly. But also, when people go, "Oh yeah, I had leaky gut, and then I did this, and I got rid of it. Oh, and it's back again."
Mm.
It never left.
Yeah.
It's always there. What people don't understand is the second you abuse your environment, abuse your body, things are going to go wrong.
Mm.
You know, this is always going to happen. This is just it's just a system. I won't go into it too much today, but diabetes is another thing that I believe is 100% reversible.
Wow.
Anyone that's created diabetes in themselves, people who are born with it, I still a lot of research to do, a lot of things to find out, but it's now becoming an acceptable fact that diabetes can be reversed.
Wow.
So I mean, I think all these things are just epigenetic programs in our body designed to help us survive environments and situations that just aren't apparent anymore.
Mm.
The more and more we go through this, the more and more evidence we see, the more and more this becomes very obvious. But it's just a case of solidifying that evidence to say this is exactly why, this is exactly what, this is exactly how. Until we have that, it's very hard to say. In fact, it's always impossible to say this is exactly what it is. We go, this is the best answer we have. Is always the only way we can say it really, because even if we find empirical evidence for something, that can change in 50, 100 years down the line when someone gets better technology that shows that actually isn't the right answer. That's just the only answer you could see.
At that time, yeah.
At that time. So nothing's ever correct 100%. It's the best answer we always have.
Yes.
But I mean, it's just I find it constantly fascinating, all the new stuff that comes out. The fact that we can physically change our DNA just by thought alone. So basically, if we had enough control over our brains, theoretically, we could completely alter our structure, to something completely new and different. The speed of evolution is technically possible. It's technically there. It's one of the things we say we're confused about in evolution is that we evolved so fast. We don't know why. We don't know how. well, these start to look at giving some answers to that. And that's why I think these answers are so interesting, because they are actually the first ones that have really given a more complete picture, to give a more rounded answer, rather than just saying, oh, this looks like it's happened and we don't know the rest.
Sure.
So I always like more complete pictures.
Yes.
It's much fun.
So when it comes to leaky gut, then what again, in terms of actionable steps, obviously we've looked at how people need to think about it potentially differently. So what is the takeaway? What is the actions that people can take when it comes to leaky gut?
So the leaky gut lining, if we want to heal the intestinal lining, any damage, that's going to be the bone broth. The things that cause leaky gut are high stress situations. So anything that's raising your cortisol, which can be anything. I've got an ebook I'm publishing very soon on that, about all the things that can cause stress, all the reactions, all the possibilities and ways of decreasing it. But that's coming out. That's coming out soon, hopefully. Waiting for the design. But decreasing cortisol, and also decreasing non-seasonal foods. They will cause inflammation. They will cause problematic symptoms within your body. If you have diet high in refined sugars and processed foods and all this stuff, those things are going to cause more leakiness in the gut than say high food and high seafood diet, or a Mediterranean diet, or even a vegan diet, vegetarian diet. If you're looking at things with lots of rice, lots of pasta, lots of burgers, lots of chips, lots of these what people consider safe starches, even those things are going to cause more leakiness in the gut than your more traditional foods that we've been eating for longer times. You've got to remember that we only started eating these foods about 15 to 13,000 years ago. A lot of this stuff. So a lot of this stuff, in the terms of evolution, is quite new. In fact, for the last 13,000 years, our brains have been shrinking. I think they've shrunk now by about 10% in the past 13,000 years. So that in itself shows that we've been moving away from an optimum diet. And when we were looking at the agricultural revolution, we didn't do this because it was an improvement for humanity. We did it because it was a way for us to survive. It was a need, not evolutionary design. So by that need to survive, we've actually created a less optimum eating habits and diet and nutritional regime, realistically. And the evidence is there just in the fact that our brains have shrunk in the past 13,000 years.
So that's a topic in itself. I won't open the can of worms up in my brain and see. I'm thinking, how do we reverse that? But I think in terms of the interest of time, in terms of what we want to cover today, it'd be good to perhaps move on to some of the environmental stuff that we were talking about.
So, well, if we start from going back a little bit to what I was saying before about the whole breakfast and everything else and setting leptin. So, first thing you need to understand, leptin is the master hormone that controls pretty much everything in the body, all the cascades. So, it's a fat hormone. It's released from fat. You get most of it from your mother's milk when you breastfeed. That's your first ever sort of injection of it. If you weren't breastfed, that doesn't mean you don't have leptin in your body. It means it's not going to be has an optimum level as early on as you normally would if you were breastfed. Hence why being breastfed is important, not just for the immune system, not just for the bacteria, but actually for your first injection of leptin. Leptin, like I said, controls the energy balance in all of your cells all at once by feeding back information to your muscles, all your cells throughout your body, but mainly the hypothalamus in the brain, which is like your real controlling center of most of your autonomic responses. It also determines how hungry or satiated you are. So if leptin is what decides how your metabolism fires and how hungry or how satiated you are as well. I think it's a dimorphic hormone, which means, and it has a large control over your sex hormones. So having good leptin sensitivity as well has a very large link to fertility, both men and women. So when we come to just looking at leptin as itself by a hormone, we start realizing all these fantastic jobs it does and how important it is. So the next thing is, right, how do you become leptin sensitive, or how do you become leptin resistant? What is leptin resistance, and what does it cause, and why does it happen? Which is, again, a huge topic, and we'll just skim over it. But you look at obesity today, something, again, Dr. Jack Kruse would say, with obesity is a inflammatory disease. So basically where you have a problem about leptin crossing the blood-brain barrier and getting to your hypothalamus. So you have a offset leptin level, and therefore your metabolism goes out of whack. And no matter how much you exercise, you keep putting weight on because your body doesn't know what to do with itself. It's not communicating efficiently. System it's set up to count the energy in the body and report back is not working. So a lot of the time, this is what happens. And you look at all these diseases, and they seem to be very closely linked to a lot of different things. So one of the things that's very closely linked to many diseases is high blood glucose, low insulin activity. These two things here are also caused by excess amount of blue light and excess amount of EMF and electromagnetic frequencies. So every time you're next to a computer, on your phone, watching TV, using Wi-Fi, all these things, even just standing next to a plug socket, you've got a non-native electromagnetic frequency hitting your body, causing a disruption in your cells' frequency and vibration and the ability to communicate with each other, which then causes an increase in blood glucose and a decrease in insulin levels.
So this is like 99.9% of the time.
Yes. So blue light, just for anyone that doesn't know, is basically every single light bulb and computer screen and TV screen that you've ever seen in your life. We used to have incandescent lights, which is a lot more of a balanced full spectrum, those sort of orangey lights. Yeah. But now everything's LED, everything's all that sort of stuff. So another small interesting side fact that Dr. Robert Obecker, he proved a long time ago, was that bone in our body, there's two things about it. One, it's an LED, a light emitting diode. So those same things that make up your screen, your TV, and your phone, and your computer, and all that stuff, they're made from LEDs, light emitting diodes. Yes. So your bone is actually a light emitting diode. And the other thing is, it's a semiconductor.
Light.
Yes. So if you put electrical current through bone, it emits light, or it radiates energy.
Got it.
So you've got bone is a light emitting diode, and you can look at Dr. Robert Obecker's work on this. I think the book he wrote is called The Body Electric. Very good book. You should read that. And also that bones are a semiconductor. So that means that they can conduct electronic current. So these two little side facts alone are quite interesting that we might come back to in a second. I just thought I'd mention that this is maybe a bit of an open loop. We'll come back to it.
Okay.
But so we start looking at these hormonal or biochemical changes that happen in the body just from a little bit of environmental stimulus that seem to mimic what we now see as very alarming reactions that are linked to things like diabetes and heart disease and Alzheimer's and all these sorts of things. So we go, okay, right. So we see this very important hormone. We see these natural environmental effects causing these problems. Okay, so maybe there's something to that. But how do we get leptin sensitivity? Because that's what everyone really wants to know. Now, the other thing we need to know before that is how our hormones are controlled. What controls the hormone cascade in our body? What's the most efficient thing to control that? How does our body know when to release them? What happens? What controls all that? And I said a little bit about it before, and it's the sun. The sun physically programs our body to tell it when to do things. The light and dark cycle of the planet, we are inherently linked to. So when the sun rises and we're not up, there's a problem. When the sun sets and we still see all these lights shining, there's a problem. Just by offsetting that, it means we've now created an alien planet for us to live on. Because instead of having a 12-hour day or whatever the length of the day is for us at that time of year, we now have an 18, 20-hour day where lights are on the entire time we're awake, and then suddenly they're off and we go to sleep. That in itself completely destroys melatonin production. And melatonin is vital to get a good night's sleep. Ocular melatonin, particularly, which then signals pineal melatonin, which then signals so on and so on and so on and so forth, which I'll spare you the biochemistry lesson. But just to say factually that when the sun goes down, your eyes should not be seeing light. And when they do, that causes a mismatch and imbalance in the body's biochemical reactions, which then has a knock-on effect down the line. So if you really want to get leptin sensitive, the first thing you need to start doing is living by the sun. When the sun comes up, you get up. Now, it doesn't mean you can't get up before the sun, but it means, it doesn't mean you can't have a line every now and then, but it means you need to get outside. When you get up, you need to get outside and see some sunlight as soon as you get up. First thing, that sunlight in the morning, that AM sunlight is so important for setting your circadian rhythm, your hormone, your biochemical profile for the day. Again, just like having that first thing that touches your tongue in the morning, setting you up, and you can start to see a pattern here. It's what you do first thing that's going to set you up for the rest of the day. It's winning the morning. It's making sure you have the most optimal morning you can if you want to have the most optimal day, and if you want to have the most optimal life. Does that make sense, right?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So, the morning is, to be honest, the most important part of every person's day. And those people that say, well, I'm just not a morning person, that's great. And not everyone is a morning person. I understand that, and that's completely fine.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying you have to get up and run a marathon. I'm not saying you have to get up and write a novel. I'm saying you have to get up, stand outside, see the sun with your own eyes, or see the sky with your own eyes where the sun would be, even if it's cloudy. Clouds don't matter. They just decrease the power of the sun.
Yeah.
The sun still hits the ground. It's still light outside. A cloud does not cause pitch black darkness. So get outside, see the sun, and eat the best breakfast you can. It's not really a big thing to ask, and it's free. You do it anyway. I'm just telling you what order to do it in. In fact, I've got a video on my YouTube channel that talks about sun, sex, and a big breakfast, and how it's the best way to start your morning.
Sounds like a fantastic start to the day.
Yeah. What I go out and do is, I don't come up with this stuff by myself. I go out and I research this stuff from numerous sources, and I put together these people's work. So I go and read Dr. Jack Kruse. I go and I buy all the books that these guys have written. I go and read Gerald Pollack, Gilbert Ling. I go and study with Dr. Jose Palomar. I look into even the more psychological and mindset and quantum psychology level of Dr. DeMartini and Dr. Joe Dispenza, looking at some of the more meditative side of things. I just like to go and search for all these things and bring them back into one place and put these things together like a jigsaw puzzle. And it's like my own little play thing, my own little game, to try and see how much information then I can get to, and how it all fits together. And all roads lead to Rome, I think is the saying. Everyone is talking about the same thing, just from different angles. Yeah. And I like to just collate that and put them together, and just see where one person's missing something, or what one person isn't saying. Yes. Maybe they've even missed it. Maybe they just not communicated their message because they don't deem it as important for the thing they're trying to achieve. That's the really cool thing for me.
It just makes me want to just come and be diagnosed by you. And I feel like if you all these things you're speaking about, it just makes me think about how can I optimize everything, because that is something I'm similarly obsessed with. I spent a lot of time in studying previously micronutrition. I became completely fascinated with becoming the most energetic man alive for a while, and just studied all of the kind of different resources on micronutrition, specifically in sleep and natural rhythms within the body. And
it's difficult to find all this stuff as well.
It's very hard.
as big of a following as any of these guys ever get, or as bigger of a publicity that any of their stuff ever has, it's still not easy to find. There's so much stuff out there, and so many things that may be like a half true, like just like, or like, you know, they kind of got it right, or they're nearly there. You know, they're still the early stages. I mean, there's so much stuff out there. The more people that start talking about it, the better, of course. But there's so much stuff out there. It's really hard to find that source material. And then people will even come back to me and say, "Okay, so where's the double-blind research test that, you know, is accepted by all the governments? And, you know, why isn't this in the news? And why isn't this here?" And it's never that simple. I mean, you show me a research paper, and I can go, "Okay, but I don't believe it because of this. Now prove it to me." They're like, "Well, but I've just showed you the paper." But I said, "But I don't believe it because this and this." They said, "Yeah, but this is true." And I said, "It doesn't matter. I don't believe it because this and this." And
well, the world used to be flat. You know, it was true that the world was flat for a long period of time. So
when a lot of these people will come up to you and say, "Oh, but you don't have any evidence," I say, "Well, I have evidence. Here's evidence." They go, "Well, I don't believe you because this says something different." And they say, "Okay, well, I don't believe that because this and this." What's more relevant, my evidence, your evidence? There is no more relevant evidence. It's all a discussion. But the people get caught up in this dogma of this can't be true because it's not accepted by this person. They don't actually start thinking for themselves on a paradigm of, could this be true? Does this warrant more investigation? Does this have more sense than this one? Just because this is done by so-and-so person does not make it any more relevant than done by someone else. The information, the facts at hand, have they cooked the experiment? Have they only picked out positive sources? Because that happens a lot of the time too. You know, when people go, they miss out all the things that might have disproved the theory, or all the references that disprove the theory. Instead of when you have a full, really strong case for something being unequivocally true in a scientific community, what you should have is every single citation that disproves or challenges your theory, and you should have an answer for all of those citations in your experiment. That's the only time something is 100% valid.
Yeah, and often I guess even then there's a lot of stuff is built on assumptions.
Yeah, completely. I mean, let's just assume that Einstein's equation of E equals mc squared was wrong.
Just recently I met a fantastic genius mathematician, and we were talking about, you know, what if some of the mathematics, because maths is all about truth. Yeah. Maths is all about truth. And I said, what about if some of those truths were disproved? What would that impact would that have on everything we know about everything? And it was just, you know, the same is true in terms of the scientific community. There's all these truths that are currently truths based upon everything that we know, and based upon a lot of the time, a lot of these assumptions. So for me, it's fascinating. And what I love about what you're doing is you're creating a testing ground within yourself, you know, and seeing the results, and you're looking at it from all kind of angles. So for me, it's really useful to know someone like you who brings in all the different sources and questions reality and questions the integrity of the stuff, and looking for the... I get stuck in dogma just like the next person. I go, no, it's got to be this way. And then you catch yourself doing that. You're like, no, stop. What are you doing? No, prove it. Why do you think it's this way? It's not just this way. Articulate it. When you get frustrated, when you get angry, when you get defensive, it's because you've run out of intelligent, articulate ways to say your point. That's my rule. If I ever become frustrated with anyone, it's because I've run out of articulate, intelligent ways to put myself forward. And then that's my problem, not theirs. I've experienced that myself many times.
Yeah. I've experienced on both sides. And then it's not until you're on the other side of it and you go, but but why are you being like this? You're like, I do this all the time. Okay, sorry, I'm going to stop. You know, and it's a two-way street. Everyone needs to understand and learn that lesson. But you know, there's like just so much stuff. Like we haven't even talked about cold therapy yet, which is I'm a massive advocate of, and a massive part of what I do daily. I mean, I'm planning to go down to Hampstead Heath tomorrow morning in fact, to go and swim in the pond out there. So basically just, get outdoors in my shorts and jump into water and swim around for a bit. It's a massive part of what I do. And in fact, that's what makes doing that sort of eating plan as well so much easier. Because another thing about leptin sensitivity and changing your eating plans to what I said earlier is when you're cold adapted. Now, of course, I don't suggest just going straight away and jumping into 5-degree water for the first time. If you've never done anything before, there's a whole protocol way of doing that, which again, I talk about on my membership site and my blog, and in my private members group. But when you're cold adapted, not only do you increase leptin sensitivity by tenfold, you force your body to use stored fat to burn as heat, so you become quite shredded. If you're eating right at the same time, that is as well, of course, because again, it's about hormone cascades. There's got to be things in line and parallel to make it work properly. But also, naturally, your hunger decreases because through evolution, we learned to fast and hibernate in super cold environments and not have water or food for 4 to 6 months and sleep underground. So our body naturally has a change in it, the way it operates and the way it communicates with itself, just because it's cold adapted to its warm adapted. Also, cold temperatures cause our taste buds to prefer fatty foods, whereas warm temperatures force our taste buds to prefer more sweet foods, because that's exactly what they expect to have in those environments.
Wow.
So those taste buds on our tongue, the things no, I like this food because that's my conscious choice. It's not your conscious choice. Your taste buds, the cells that create your taste buds, they change to a completely new set of cells every 7 days. Every 7 days, you have a new tongue in your mouth.
That's crazy.
It's quite literally. It's like you don't decide you like anything. Your body decides what you need when you need it. And depending on your hormone cascades, depending on what your brain is telling it to do, depending on what your environment is stimulating.
My girlfriend will be very pleased to know that it's hot weather when we're at the beach, which determines why she wants an ice cream every time.
Oh, it's brilliant. I mean, it's just like never ending. I love this stuff. It's just, I mean, even when, so if I go quickly on to tell a bit of a story about a man in space. And the Russians sent a cosmonaut up and to circle the world in just outside the outer atmosphere, space. They sent him up for 430-something days. And over that time, every day he experienced 19 sunsets and 19 sunrises. And when he got back down to Earth, he was a crippled, frail old man with the bones of an 80-year-old.
Whoa.
He went up.
How old was he when he went up?
I can't remember exactly, but I think he was in his 30s, either 30s or early 40s. I'm pretty sure it was around 30s. I'd need to double check. But anyway, he sent him up, and he was fit, strong Russian astronaut. You know how they build these guys? They're like fucking machines, you know.
Yeah.
They're built, you know. They're strong guys. And he exercised every day and ate the perfect diet every day while he was in space. And yet he became a fragile, crippled old man, and he never recovered.
Crazy.
Never recovered. Now, why is that? He ate perfectly. He exercised every day. Well, maybe food and exercise isn't as important as we give it credit for. Maybe there's other things. So when I'm coming to saying, well, your environment is determining how your brain communicates with your body, and your brain communicates with your body through a hormone cascade, which decides how you react, which can cause Neolithic disease or health. Well, you know, maybe this is actually proof. You know, there's more stuff to that, but I mean, he saw 18 sunsets and 18 sunrises, so it means, let's say he was up there for just a year and a half. Even if we just say a year to round it up.
Yep.
Well, okay, a year times 18, 19, say just round it up to 20, just say, okay, he should have aged 20 years in that year. But he didn't just age 20 years. He didn't come back down and be 50, 60 odd. He was 80 odd, 90 odd.
And
You know,
did you say he died?
no, well, he didn't die up. He didn't die up there. He died later on Earth,
Right.
years later.
Right.
Obviously, the Russians looked after him very well after that, and lots of other things. I don't know the whole story of what happened when he got back to Earth, but the fact is, food and exercise wasn't enough to keep him healthy in space. Now, if Einstein's equation and theories of relativity dictate that we should actually get younger in space, apparently. Now, I'm no mathematician, or I'm still a studying physicist, so I need to understand this better. But according to the maths, we should get younger and taller in space. But this guy got shorter and older.
Wow.
And people didn't really know why. But the two things that he was missing out there was Earth's gravitational field and Earth's magnetic field, something called the Schumann resonance. And what a lot of quantum physicists talk about, quantum biologists talk about, is how the Schumann resonance is how is very important to the timings and the systems of our body. So the connection to Earth itself is very important. In fact, birds can navigate large distances across the planet and turn to the same spot every season because of the Schumann resonance. Mm-hmm. Something that happens, so some magnetic sensor happens in conjunction with light in their eye, with photons hitting their eye and causing some uncoupling of a magnetic sort of transponder in the eye, telling them exactly locations of things that are connected to the Schumann resonance of the Earth. And that's quite well documented as well. I mean, it's not like theoretical science here. This is factual evidence studied science. Mm. It's there, but people aren't putting it together and people are ignoring it. It's just amazing. It's mind-boggling.
So what do you think it means for mankind in terms of this kind of this gravitational field and these kind of forces that we kind of take for granted?
Well, I think what we've got to understand is living in tall buildings is going to change our health. Mm-hmm. Disconnecting from the Earth, so we don't have a conductive surface touching Earth's conductive surface, so we lose the free-flowing electrons from the Earth. So most people have heard of grounding. What grounding is a basic a scientific principle of electrical current. You've got the Earth is more electron dense than we'll ever be, and the sort of electronic principle describes, or even scientific law of thermodynamics, that energy will flow to a lesser source. So if you've got a greater source of energy and a lesser source of energy touching, it'll equilibrate itself. Electrons will flow to the lesser source, which will be us. Now, electrons is exactly how we power mitochondria. Mitochondria are the battery of our cells, and they power them through electron train transport. So when we eat food, we don't eat food for proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. They're raw materials to make cells structure with, but they're not energy. The energy comes from the electrons within the food. The energy comes from electrons from the sun. The energy comes from the electrons from the Earth. And what cold does is it slows all the biochemical processes in the body and actually increases electron flow. Because remember what I said before, that bone is a semiconductor.
Yeah.
And what happens when you supercool a semiconductor?
I don't know.
It becomes more conductive. It becomes superconductive. And also, so that's electrical current running through our body much more efficiently. Yep. The other thing we've got to know about cold is, and mitochondria. Mitochondria are basically electromagnets. The thing that creates energy, or the thing that creates ATP in mitochondria, is called an ATPase. And that has a spinning, rotating head at the bottom. The faster that spins, the more ATP it creates. But what also happens to spinning objects is they create magnetic fields. Now again, when you supercool magnets, they become super powerful. So you can see now that our body is actually naturally adapted to cold environments. Cold environments make our body work a lot more efficiently. They not only slow the aging process down, but they speed up the ability to produce energy and among a lot of other things. And increase the body's ability to communicate with itself. So being cold adapted is actually a very good way of slowing any form of disease process down and aid, and giving your body a better chance to heal and recover itself from many things. So we want to increase electron flow and decrease biochemical reactions.
So, Christian, I have a cold shower every morning, as cold as can be within the power of my shower. Does this have the similar effect that you're talking about?
Similar, yeah.
I mean,
similar.
I started off.
The best thing is the buff.
Yeah. Okay.
Or the best thing is the sea.
Yeah.
Sea is the best. If you get into a cold sea, now that's like the real deal, because you've got the electron flow coming from the Earth, and the sea is the most electron dense thing on the planet. Okay. That's where life started, from the bottom of the ocean. That's where all life started. So, that's where we get the most, the biggest magnetic drive. So the highest Schumann resonance is closer to the Earth's core. You've got the most electrons coming from there. You've got cold water, so that's the best way to do it. Then you've got rivers and ponds and stuff like that. And you've got cold baths. Then you've got showers, and so you sort of got different levels and different ways of doing it. Now, someone who's never done it before should definitely start in the shower. Yeah. Generally. And there's other things to measure, like if you've got your correct omega-3, omega-6 levels, or if you're estrogen dominant. If you've got too high omega-6, or if you're estrogen dominant, this is going to make cold therapy very tough for you to start. It'll be a bit bumpy on the beginning, but it's worth doing. But yeah, so if you're in the showers, it's going to cause an effect. It's going to be good for you. It's going to be healthy for you, but it's not going to be as effective. Every now and then, you should be, if you're having regular cold showers and you're becoming cold adapted, and that's great. But every now and then, you should be looking to do a 20 minute, 45-minute dip in a seriously cold water. But you've got to build up to it, of course.
Yeah, I mean,
not just go straight away.
When I first started the cold shower, the first time I did it, I just went from warm to cold, slammed it as cold as it would go, and I was screaming like a baby at first.
Yeah, but that happens.
But every day now, I've just increased it to the point where my tolerance level now, if I'm entering, the sea, for example, when I go into the sea, it doesn't feel as cold. I see my friends kind of tiptoeing into the water, and I just walk straight, stroll straight on in because I've built up that tolerance, I think.
Yeah, completely. And the thing, I've survived the entire winter this year without anything more than a t-shirt. I walk around in a t-shirt all day, every day, everywhere. It's been down to 1 degree here in London. Not much past that. It's not anything amazing, but I used to be a really big wimp with the cold. I seriously, I just hate it. It's like, where the hell? Where's the sunshine? I was born on the wrong side of the equator. What's going on here? And then, just going through this process of cold adapting, I've been able to walk around the whole winter, nothing more than a t-shirt, unless I've just got out of the cold bath, and then I'll put on a hoodie if I've got to go straight out after a cold bath. So like if I have a 20-minute cold bath in the morning, 10-20 minutes, and then I've got to go straight out to see someone first thing in the morning, I might have a hoodie on for 10 to 30 minutes of the first 10 to 30 minutes I'm outside while it's still dark, like pitch black at 5 in the morning, and I'm out doing something first thing, I might have a hoodie on. Or if I go to swim in the ponds where it was 5-degree water the other day, and I'll get in, I'll swim around, and then I'll dress back up, and I'll be back in a hoodie and jogging bottoms and shoes and a hat on and stuff like that, just to keep the heat in, to allow my body to re-equilibrate itself. There's ways and means of doing this. There's safe ways and there's dangerous ways, and it's just all about doing your due diligence, reading up, making sure you know what you're doing, making sure you know how and why and where and when. As long as you do it right, it's fantastically good, but it's got to be done properly.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Similarly, when I started looking into this cold water stuff, I had some pretty gritty horror stories and even fatalities. So I think you have to explore. You have to approach these things with caution.
Again, this is why there's a whole eating process that goes with it. There's a whole specific diet I put with my protocol. I say, yeah, you've got to do these two things. You've got to do these 2 or 3 things together if you want to be able to do it properly. Otherwise, you can kind of do it and you're going to get some benefits and it's going to make you healthier, but you're not going to see the whole effect. That's it. I mean, even like you look at the way Wim Hof does it. And obviously a lot of people ask me about that. What's the whole Wim Hof thing about? Do you do the same thing? Is that what you do? Why is it different? Why don't you do that way? Why, they just ask all the questions, all the questions that people generally want to know. And I've been doing a lot of research into the whole breathing aspect, as I was telling you before we got on the call, of that side of things. And then you've got the whole over-oxygenating the brain, which causes vasoconstriction, or over-increasing CO2, which causes lightheadedness. And you've got all these other things that could maybe take away the pain that you feel, let's say, pain in quotes, when you get into water. And it's a very meditative sort of practice, doing the whole breathing. And I don't know exactly why he does it, but one of the things that I found out really interesting, one of the reasons why I don't do it or don't suggest it for everyone, and one of the reasons why it also could be really good for someone, is because of what breathing in a hyperventilation or even various different breathing patterns can do. Various breathing patterns will physically activate part of your brain or areas of your brain. So whether it's a forebrain, midbrain, or hindbrain, to be just very blasé about where these things are, you could activate various cranial nerves. So I was telling you before we got on, I saw someone last night where I got him scratching over the area where his heart was, clenching his eyes tight, and breathing it with an ataxic breathing pattern. So this was a very random breathing pattern, and this was to stimulate various cranial nerves and to fix a problem he was having. I said, after 30 seconds or so is all it takes. Open your eyes, relax, chill out, start seeing, just tell me what you're feeling, tell me how it's going. And suddenly he said, oh, it's really weird, it's something different. So what's wrong? He said, nothing's wrong. He said, it feels like someone's turned the lights on.
Yes,
like
right.
Everything in the room is brighter. All the colors are brighter. And this was because somewhere down the line of that problem was affecting his optic nerves and the way he was actually perceiving colors into his brain. So these neurological tools and assessment tools and treatment tools can physically affect how you smell, taste, see. I've had someone who could physically see, that they explained it like having eagle vision afterwards. They could see further. These are two experienced eyes. Other people have said they could smell. Suddenly they could smell everything in the room. Suddenly they could hear better. All these sorts of things. They seem magical at the time, but it's not magical. It's just neurology. But if you look at, that's what breathing patterns can do. But breathing patterns can also send you the wrong way. So if you do the wrong breathing pattern in the wrong order with the wrong facial expression, Bell's palsy, in fact, the reason why they say, oh, be careful, don't make that face. If the wind changes, you'll get stuck. One of the biggest causes of Bell's palsy is cold on the skin, causing an inflammation of a certain nerve that will cause your face to drop, the facial nerve.
Crazy.
So Bell's palsy is depending on whether the upper or lower motor neuron branch of the facial nerve has been inflamed or blocked. And if there becomes too much of a blockage, or too much inflammation, or too much of a damage, or that's created too much hypoxia, the nerve can never recover, and you're stuck like that.
Wow.
But then it can also be caused by a neurological reaction from either a crude touch or a cold receptor problem at a time where you're just in a very bad state, and your body becomes hypersensitive to something, and something happens and causes a problem within the nerve.
Crazy. So
yeah,
how do we find this? Obviously we have natural breathing patterns, and there's certain breathing patterns you'll go through a kind of meditation process. What can someone learn from this in terms of?
But it's not be afraid of breathing. Everyone needs to breathe a lot, because breathing is very important. If you don't breathe, you just might die.
Yes.
It's always a risk. I haven't tried it personally, but I hear it's pretty fatal.
Yeah, I wouldn't experiment with that.
Yes, so with breathing, it's like, okay, doing his stuff is great, and it works for a lot of people. Observationally, it's fantastic, and I can't explain everything about it now. Not just because we haven't got time, but just because I don't know. I would need to speak to him personally to actually have an understanding of why he does it and what's the real reasons. I've been through his online stuff, so I know bits about it, but I would prefer to have a proper chat with him if I ever had the opportunity to go and do that. I would, and so go and find out a lot more about why, how, where, when, ask some questions and be inquisitive, because there's a lot of scientific reasons why it can work and why it shouldn't work and why all this other stuff, and I'm still researching that. But what I do know is, if it makes you feel like crap, don't do it. Nothing's right, nothing's wrong. It's all a process of what's happening for you specifically in your body. Is for someone, rubbing someone on the cheek might make someone feel amazing, and it might make the next person feel like absolute crap. As simple as rubbing someone on the cheek. Crazy. And that's just be to do with how the neurology of the body is set up. In fact, even the same thing, getting in cold water, it might be the best thing for one person to do, and it might be such a horrible thing for another person to do. If it doesn't feel right, don't do it. Get help. See someone that knows about this, because getting into the cold is going to be healthy and beneficial for everyone, bar none, as long as they're human, as long as they're a eutherian mammal. But if they have a cold receptor issue, if they're hypersensitive to cold, or if they've got even if they've got a hot receptor issue, so the heat in their skin is needed to compensate for something else in the system because of some trauma they've had through their life, then getting into cold might actually cause them more trouble than it's worth. They might need to resolve this issue first before they even go there. It's not, nothing is, everyone needs to do this. That's never, ever the case. It's always the case of specificity. Where are you? Who are you? What are you doing? What do you need? Where have you been? Why do you want it?
That makes a lot.
There's hundreds of questions that everyone needs to be asked before they're given anything as a protocol, because and then even when they're given it, they still might. So how many times have I had patient or clients and patients come through, and I've said, okay, they go, oh, my elbow hurts, and I don't know why. Okay, so tell me your history. Ever had any surgeries? Ever had any? No, I'm healthy. I've never had any problems. Just this elbow hurts. And then you'll be going through stuff, and then you'll suddenly find something. What's this? Oh yeah, that was that one time I had a car accident, and I smashed my head against the window, and there's a little cut there. That's a little scar. So what? No, in fact, the best one was I had someone with a hamstring problem, and I said, "Give me a client history," and said everything. I said. And he said, yeah, I've got this nothing's wrong with it. I've never had anything else. And then he was wearing long sleeves, and I grabbed his arm to do a test, and I felt a little bump. I was like, what's that? Rolled his sleeve up. He goes, what's this massive scar down your entire forearm? Oh, yeah, I nearly cut my artery open when I was on this sailing boat once.
Right.
I went, in fact, you didn't tell me about that little dent on your forehead there. What's that? Oh yeah, I got bottled a few months back. It was actually right before the hamstring started hurting.
Right.
I was like, okay. So people even forget. So even when you give someone a protocol, you've then got to watch them and go, okay, how do you feel? Do you feel better? I feel better. Great. 2-3 days later, I feel like crap. Why? Okay, so it's a constant taking things apart, putting them back together, testing, seeing. Unless you want to spend thousands of pounds on tests to be ultimately like, this is perfect. And even then, lab tests are only a photograph of your body at the exact point in time. At that exact point in time, this was best. Now it's not. So it's just it's a never-ending list of just recheck, keep up to date, know your knowledge, know your stuff. And it's something that takes time, it takes energy, it takes effort. So you either need to be willing to read yourself, understand the stuff yourself, or be talking to someone that already does this for you. I always say this in my events to my members, no one's got time to learn all this stuff except me, because that's my life. Yeah. That's what I do. I mean, I only work with a small number of people on a one-to-one basis, so I can put my time into study and research, so I can present to a larger audience in the membership system, in the group, in the blog. And I tried doing it the other way, where I saw loads of people and I ended up driving myself into the floor a number of times, and it's just not worth it for my health or for anyone else. So I mean, I spend my life studying this stuff and researching this stuff and bringing all this stuff together so I can share it with other people, so they don't need to go away and do that. I mean, that's the big thing really for me, running all these events and doing all this stuff so I can have a greater reach.
Well, let's close off the conversation by talking about what's coming up for you in 2017. I know you've got a number of events planned. I think it'd be a good way for us to close out by sharing some of the things you've got lined up, so people can come and find out more about your work in person.
Oh yeah. So let's first start with I've set up a new free group on Facebook and on something else called Meetup that is called the Superhuman Experiment, and I'll give you all the links to that. And I think you might be added to the Facebook group actually already. So I'll give you links to that. So that is a free event where we'll be running various free events. Like the first one will be on the 29th of January, where we'll be in Battersea Park doing a bit of basic movement training, talking about mindset, and then also taking part in the Go Ape excursion that they've set up in Battersea Park. Awesome. So of course that's up to everyone to buy their own tickets for that, and they'll turn up. The talk in the little movement session that I'll do beforehand will be free. That'll be like 11:30 on a Sunday, and then everyone is free to buy some tickets to go up onto the Go Ape bit and have a play.
Nice.
So I've got a couple, myself and a few people that have already booked our tickets, and we're already going to be up there doing that. And then so like we're going to have loads of free events throughout the year, in regards to that. So the first one, like I said, is in January. Then we've got another one in April, and another one beginning of April, another one at the end of August.
Yeah.
And then for my event plans next year, I've got a event actually early Feb. It's all about mindset. It's like the reason why 90% of New Year's Eve resolutions fail. And then I've got another one in early May, another one in late September, and I've got 2 workshops that I'm running this year as well, actually, both around cold thermogenesis. So anyone that wants to know how to get into the cold therapy properly, they want to know all the ins and outs, the scientific information, the resources, how to eat, how to sleep, how to walk, how to start it, all of the things to avoid, all the things to do. I'm putting on a 2-day workshop. It'll be like a Saturday in late Feb, and you'll be in a classroom. You'll learn all the technical stuff, and then we'll put together in that classroom a plan for you to then go and action over the next week, to set yourself up, to get yourself in a position where you'll be strong enough to, on the following Sunday, come meet me in Hampstead Heath and get into the Lido over there. So it's an outdoor pool with lifeguards and everything around, so everything's safe and secure for people. Yeah. And we'll just basically get into the cold water, which will probably be around anything between 5 and 7 degrees, most likely around that time of year. And we'll get in, and they'll do a quick swim, like 10-meter swim to one end and back or something like that. And I'll do that with every person, and the people can stay in for as long as they want and get out, get changed, and then we'll go and do a bit of a movement training session out in the park afterwards. So anyone who wants to know how to do cold therapy properly and have that experience in a safe, supervised environment, then that's going to be happening the end of Feb. And I'm also going to put another one on, when have I said, in November.
Awesome. So if people join the Facebook group and they subscribe at your blog, they'll undoubtedly keep in touch with all the dates.
Get all the information of that. I mean, so of course, one of the other things that people should probably be aware of is any of the paid events, any members of my blog automatically are access to certain discounts. So for instance, just by being a free member of the blog, you get a 20% discount to any event I put on.
Cool.
And if you are part of the top level membership to the diamond level membership, you get up to a 50% discount on events as well as access to the free recordings and various other things and all this other stuff that goes on.
Cool. So what address can we send people to find out about your membership site, and how can they join the Facebook group?
Right. So the membership site is eqtransformations.co.uk. That's the website address for that. And if you just follow the information on the homepage, you'll see everything. And obviously you can email me through there as well.
Awesome.
Or you can get hold of me via my full name, Christian Thomson, on Facebook. Add me and just message me, and if you've got any questions. And the shortcuts to the free Facebook group is the Superhuman experiment. That should, if you just type that in to the Facebook search bar, you should find that group. And I think it's still an open group at the moment, so you should just be able to just join.
Awesome. All the links will be in the show notes anyway, so people can.
Yeah, exactly. I'll make sure I have all that, and as well, we'll have I want to put some offers forward for the guys, obviously, who are part of your podcast. So we'll put some links to some stuff they can get as well, some special codes and whatnot for the people that for part of your group.
Awesome.
As well.
That's great news. Well, Christian, it's been a blast as usual.
Yeah.
We've taken a deep dive into so many areas and there's such practical wisdom that people can take away. And I'm just so fascinated by the work that you do. And I can't wait to continue following what you're doing and learning from the research and the study and the practical application that you indulge in. It's truly fascinating, and it's been a pleasure spending so much time with you on the podcast. And I know the Unstoppable crowd will absolutely love what we've talked about today.
Yes. So thank you again for having me on. It's been a pleasure. As always, I enjoy being on. I love doing this sort of stuff. It's why I do it. So thank you.
And I encourage the listeners to join me at some of Christian's events throughout the year and meet in person with some of the people that we've shared this with today. Hey folks, I hope you enjoyed today's bumper session. This is the longest ever episode on the Unstoppable podcast, with over 2.5 hours of content across both episodes on becoming superhuman with Christian Thomson. I want to thank you, Christian, for all your time and wisdom. It's been an amazing couple of sessions. And even with what we put out today, I got an additional 30 minutes of fascinating conversation that we had offline before the interview, which I may even release in the future just so you can get some of that as well. So before we shut it down, I know we're running on time here. I just want to remind you of Christian's extremely kind offer. As a listener of the Unstoppable podcast, you can exclusively get up to 50% off Christian's Superhuman membership program by using the discount code UNSTOPPABLE at the checkout. This code is only available for the first 20 people who use it, so please do act fast. You can go over to eqtransformations.co.uk to take access to that, or find the code in the show notes at danjgregory.com/90. If you miss out on the first 20, then don't worry, you can still use the code Nearly Unstoppable, craftily named, which will still get you 20% off. So I encourage you to head over, as I said, to eqtransformations.co.uk to be one of the first to take up Christian's extremely kind New Year offer. And I do recommend joining me within the Diamond package. It's got everything you'll ever need in one place, and join me within his private Superhuman inner circle too. So you'll find the codes, as I said, and the links in today's show notes at danjgregory.com/90. I wish you well in your pursuit to become unstoppable and to become superhuman in 2017. That is all for today. Until next time, I will be back tomorrow, Monday, with a solo round talking about, if you haven't set your goals yet for 2017, here's what you can do about it. So tune in on Monday. Even if you have set your goals, by the way, do tune in, because I will be sharing a process that will help you refine and invigorate and power up your goals so that you really make an impact this year. That's all from me. Until next time, go out there, unleash your greatness, build your empire, make your impact, and live your ultimate life. You are unstoppable.